Hello and welcome back to the Pinnacle Stack. This week we are joined by another member of the CS community, Azza. Welcome. How are you doing?
Cheers, mate. Not doing too bad. How about you guys?
Yeah, all good, all good. So briefly before we get into the CS talk, do have to give you some League of Legends news that's coming out with us at Pinnacle Esports. We have a silver stakes leaderboard offer coming out where you can have a chance for a stake of up to $25,000 by competing in the leaderboards. That's available to opt in as of Wednesday the 4th, and it will take part across the Swiss stage of Worlds, and I think it will go into the playoffs as well. So be sure to check that out. And now we can forget about League of Legends entirely and get back on CS because I'm sure no one wants to talk about League.
Yeah, fuck that game.
That's the response we
I
wanted.
love Timo.
You love Timo. I can imagine you in a Timo hat, Brandon.
Get me one. I got a
I'll
Pikachu
get you
one. Does that count?
Oh no, he's getting it out.
Oh, here we go.
Does this count?
Yeah, it's close enough. But the ears move.
Yeah, what the hell?
Wow,
my
that's,
God, that's
that's
impressive.
an advanced Pikachu hat. So yeah, EPL has just ended. Surprise winners in that and surprise results. So just want to talk about Mouse. They beat Fury of Phage, G2 Ents, and Na'Vi to claim the title here. And Brandon, what have you got to say about that run of results?
Firstly, I can send you a screenshot. I predicted that they'd win, so just want to
Did you
get that
actually?
out there. Yeah. In
Okay.
Lucy's fantasy Discord, I said fuck it, they'll win Pro League, so that counts for prediction. And I had them in my fantasy. What I will say, on a more serious note, though, is I think this is what a fantastic storyline for the last CS:GO, like proper LAN and like a competition. The fact that you've got the NXT boys all being reunited, the fact that every single one of these players has come from a Mal's NXT project. Obviously, Yimfat was brought in a little bit later, but it was such a legit run, one of the most legit runs I've seen. Obviously, you can go into specifics and semantics about, well, how much does CS2 really influence the desire for some of these teams to win? But with that being said, it was still a really legit run. They played really good Counter Strike. I'm really happy for all of them. And yeah, go Mouse.
Oh,
Do you think it was a more legit run than what Vitality had at the major?
Yeah, of course.
Good stuff.
It's not even close.
And yeah, Mouse, I think they were such a surprise. They looked really good in groups. So the fact that they managed to continue that form. The one question as well that I have over to you, Hawker, is their results coming into this and at other smaller events haven't been great. So was this even more of a surprise based on some of those results that they've been having?
Yeah, I think so. It was really just the level of a couple of the individuals, especially I think Yimpat was so improved. It was crazy. Like Yimpat was maybe one of their best players when it came to playoffs. I was looking up the numbers for playoffs. Yimpat was joint highest rated with a 1.24 rating, and he plays a lot of really hard spots. Actually, he plays a lot of anchor spots and a lot of the tough positions. And he was just looking like just not that confident when he first came onto the team. I think you could see he wasn't making all the moves he wanted to make, even though you could see that he had potential. He just wasn't playing exactly with his full confidence. And for whatever reason, it was such a mad turnaround. I don't think I've seen a player go from genuinely like probably subpar in the group stage to actually really great in the playoffs so quickly. So I think Yimpat deserves a ton of credit. And then it's also just great seeing that I think everyone was hyped about Shuhei being the next up and coming in game leader, and that has so quickly been proven to be true. And it's also just nice because Frozen's been consistently good for so long, and this was the event where he basically had everyone showing up beside him. So I don't really know how it all came together quite so well for Mouse. I think you're right that I don't know if I'd expect this to happen all the time, but it's a really impressive result, and I'm happy for them. I think towards the end of CS:GO, nice way to round it out for them.
You got to think as well. The last pod or the one before that, we were all saying save Frozen. I believe that was what we were throwing out there, and then they've gone and won Pro League. So yeah, we kind of look like fools based on that. Another player I want to talk about, the MVP winner, Brandon's twin, Torzy, is
Oh,
another
that's so
player
true,
that
isn't it?
it's another player that many people were calling for his place on this team a few months back because he just wasn't getting that performance under Dexter. So we've been talking about Sue and Aaron, how much has he changed Torsey in this team?
I mean, fuck, it's like night and day, to be honest, right? Like it looked like towards the end of the last lineup, Torsey was very inconsistent, didn't look confident, wasn't going for the peaks that he's going for now. But now it's just like Sui's like he's like controlling him, but he's like it's almost like he's off his leash also now, and he's just going crazy. He's just so consistent, hitting up shots, and I don't know. It's really bringing up the fact that Sui's like I think in his recent teams also he really gets the most out of out of his AWPers, and I really think he's brought that to Torsey now again, like he was back in the past. So it's pretty crazy. Like I said, it's like night and day. Torsey looks even when you can even tell when Torsey's like talking on the desk or whatever, like at Pro League, like he just sounds so confident. He just like he can just do whatever he wants, like in game with Sui under him. So yeah, good to see.
How far do you think these guys can go in CS2 now that they're a young squad? This win, the final LAN event of CS:GO, it's got to be huge for them. Like, how far, Brandon, do you think that they can now go into CS2?
I think that's such a hard question because we don't know what the landscape is going to be in Counter-Strike 2. We don't know what teams are going to do well. We don't know kind of the state the game's going to be in, to be completely honest. But look, if they can build off that, and I think what Aaron was saying was right, that the amount of confidence they've now got, you bring that forward. Teams that in CS2, in my opinion, that are going to do well off the bat are teams that are going to be confident and think that they can just go in and they can outplay their opponent on the server. So with that coming in, with you picking up Pro League, it should keep that momentum moving forward at least. But I, it'd be weird of me to be like, oh, they're gonna be the best team in the world on CS2. They're gonna win all these trophies. I don't know because we don't really know anything about CS2 and how that's gonna look. But I expect that confidence will play a big factor, especially in the early tournaments.
Do you think there's also a possibility that this win might set people's expectations a bit too high as they're playing at Sydney?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
When you say for people, do you mean the team or just generally
Just
just
the general audience that will be watching the event.
Okay. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, the expectation for them now is a lot higher, like from everyone, I guess. I mean, after winning the event, but also their expectations of the team is going to be a bit higher. Like, obviously, when you get to the top, and then a lot of people say when you get to the top, that's the hardest, right? To stay up there and stay consistent because you're under more pressure. People are going to be watching you, and there's just a lot of little factors like that. So, yeah.
You imagine they're loving it as well because groups haven't yet been released for the event, but their placement has jumped up massively. So their seeding in that is going to be much better than what it would have been previously. So they're probably having a great time with it. And yeah, they'll get a much easier opponent for that, won't they, Hawker?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I think it's right to like just be so uncertain. I guess it's really hard to know exactly what's going to happen for CS2. I think that there'll be a lot of intrigue for that first event, but yeah, it's definitely a good sign. And I mean, especially with something like I think we'll get onto CS2 in a bit, but at least right now, when you play the game, feels like Pika's advantage is huge. That's going to be really interesting to see on LAN, by the way, if that's different at all. But it does also mean if you're playing with confidence and just swinging, and you've got, I mean, Exertion had some incredible entries on this Pro League. So like, there's a very real chance that yeah, if you're the team that's like active and always making moves, maybe that's gonna work. And when you've got confidence, you're more likely to keep making those moves.
And where we've been talking about IGLs and an IGL that has something to prove, Alexi B managing to get to the final here didn't go his way when he got there, but that as well must have been such a huge thing for his confidence as well. You must imagine, Azza.
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, it wasn't long ago where, I mean, what was the quote that was on HLTV or something where he said that the the boot camp was like a graveyard or something like
Yeah,
that.
if it wasn't for JL, right?
Yeah, something like that. So it just leading into that event, it just didn't sound like they were meshing very well. It didn't sound like they were confident. Lexi B himself was saying that boot camp was fucking trash. So leading to the event, I mean, expectations for them, I mean, from even myself was quite low, to be honest. Like, I didn't think they could get anywhere near the final, to be honest. So I guess Lexi B did something pretty good there, but I mean, for me, still, like looking at the lineup, I still don't expect them to be consistent at this like level to be able to reach finals or semifinals. I feel like they've still got a long way to go, but at least they're improving. They're getting more comfortable. They're having the same goals and stuff like that. So yeah, overall it was a decent result for them though, for sure.
It's a bit of a shame as well that Monte did manage to take down Vitality 2-0, so we didn't get the last simple versus Zaiwu, which would have been incredible to throw that off as the last thing, that we got to see two of the best AWPers of the game. And I think the Zaiwu finished best rating now in CS:GO of all time, and can anyone at the Blast events coming up take it? I don't believe so. So, I mean, that's a big achievement as well for Zaiwu. Didn't make it to the final, but he's managed to claim the #1 spot of all-time rating. So, yeah, he's going to have
What a
a
beast.
play with that. Yeah, definitely. Are there any other teams at Pro League that were standouts for you guys? I mean, Monte, as you say, took down Vitality 2-0.
Yeah, I think Monty were pretty good. They're in a weird position. I kind of don't. Sometimes I don't know how good they are because like sometimes I think they do really well when their players are playing well. They look like a really structured team, and they actually look like a lot goes right for them. And then also Warrows just seems like quite streaky as an AWPer for me. I think Warrows the kind of player. It seems like when I'm watching him, he punishes mistakes pretty well. But I don't know if he's always that good at playmaking. And then sometimes I think if the team starts to struggle, he doesn't really adapt that well, I don't think, if they start to lose a few rounds in a row. And that's kind of where you want your AWPer to switch things up and say, okay, I'm going to make a play for the team, get us into an advantage early, and just make the round a bit easier. Overall, they look pretty good. And it's impressive considering they're another one of these teams where they've kind of come out of nowhere, and it's always really hard to do that and start having deep runs at these events. So they definitely deserve their flowers, their plaudits for this.
Like I tell you what though, like I think the new guy that's come in, bro, he actually really surprised me this event. Like he just looks like such a solid anchor. Like it's funny, there's like the meme that he looks like JKS, but I mean he was like playing like a solid anchor like Justin also. Like they come to his side and get like a 2-3K and it was solid every single time. And I hadn't really known much of this kid too. So, and I think he's like 18 or 19. He's pretty young, right, or something. And I mean, he was showing up like a veteran in these anchor positions. So it looks like they're getting their lineup pretty solid right now. And I was actually surprised too because I thought Sum Young was in game leading the whole time, but apparently it was Warrow for this whole EPL. So I mean, being an AWPer and an IGL, I think that's pretty hard. So I got to give him credit there too.
Maybe that's what we all need to become really good anchor players, is to just look like Justin. How about you, Brandon? What do you think of Monte?
Look, it's a good point you brought up about the IGLing, because that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. The fact that maybe Warrow doesn't want to go and make these plays because he doesn't then want to affect the team massively, and then he's also calling from the grave. So maybe he just wants to kind of be a little bit more involved in the support network of the team rather than go in for these plays sometimes. I don't know how you feel about that, Hawker, but I think that's been where I've seen him change up. Like even before he came to like tier 1 events, where he was actually IGLing sometimes in like tier 2 tournaments, he was very aggressive, like ridiculously aggressive. And I think where the level's now gone up for Monte, they're making more consistent appearances. I think it's like, okay, actually, I can't do that against the top teams. But it's kind of gone completely the other way. And I just kind of want to see him bring back that blend, because he can be one of those playmaker AWPers. In fact, that's kind of what he built some of his career off of to begin with.
Yeah, I'd say so too. It's interesting because I remember, I think if the numbers will be a bit misleading here, because there were a couple of series where what Oro seems to do now is he gets into a position and just posts up on the angle. And then if the opponents either don't use their nades properly or just aren't expecting him, he will get opening kills. But it's not as forceful. It doesn't feel as aggressive, right? It just kind of feels like he'll go to a spot, and if they come to him, yeah, sure, he'll get that first kill. But if not, maybe not. So it's mainly just I think I was watching Monty and they were just a little streaky at times, I guess would be the way to put it. And so that is the sort of position where I agree with you, Brandon. I think I would want him to have the confidence to make a play there, because it almost feels like he gets a bit frustrated in the game sometimes. And then that frustration, like it leads to him just playing the exact same way, and it doesn't lead to him making plays. So yeah, I don't know what it is exactly, but overall, I mean, you can't really have too many complaints about Monty, realistically. Like based on the expectations for this team, they're doing great right now.
Just as a question for someone who's got so much experience as an IGL, how important is it for you to be alive in those situations and lead from the front rather than, as Brandon was saying, trying to lead from the grave?
So for me, I think it really depends on your teammates and what level of communication and awareness they have later in the round. Like I remember when I first became an in-game leader, I was still like before I became the IGL, I was like a very aggressive entry pack player sort of thing. And then I became the IGL and I wanted to do the same thing, but I couldn't because later in the round things would fall apart if other people had they had to be able to talk more and communicate, but they didn't do it. So for me, that like I remember I had to take a seat back and play a little bit more passive T side and support more because of that reason. So I mean, yeah, for me, it just really depends on your teammates and what they can do, and I guess you got to talk about the situations and stuff. But yeah, I think it really revolves around everyone, not just the IGL in that situation.
Is there ever times where you feel like maybe that you need to be a bit more aggressive? Like if you're not demonstrating what needs to be done, then the other players might not follow that or might not be able to do that as well in those situations.
Oh yeah, for sure. You have to demonstrate. Like I mean, as the IGLs, especially like if you see those, like for me, if I see those openings, I'm always going to try go for it. But you obviously want your players to do that too. So you lead by example, and you talk about the situations and stuff like that, so people know what to do when it comes to that. So yeah.
And yeah, for EPL, I think really the only other question I have for it, because I find it really difficult to talk about a lot of these teams and the results with the new game coming out and have been released now. So I just want to ask you guys, do you think that it being released midway through this tournament kind of soured the event and maybe some of the teams not stopped caring as such, but maybe didn't give it their all?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, just looking at the results, it does kind of feel like that. Yeah, it's a weird one right now. I mean, there are some teams like FaZe, for example. They've just been like struggling for such a long time that I'm still so curious to see how they do in CS2, because FaZe is the team right now that looks the most like on paper their lineup should be good, and then they've just been not getting results for so long. It's almost a question of how long a leash would you give them when we switch to CS2 before you almost are forced to make a move, because their results have just been bad. And even here, they weren't competitive in their loss against Mouse. They got 2-0'd, and I know Mouse are in great form, but it didn't feel close in the series if you were watching. So there are maybe some teams, if you've had longer term problems, I think there's still something you can take away from this event. But yeah, for some of the teams like a Vitality, for example, I mean, there's also rumors about what might be going on with, people potentially sniffing around Vitality actually, and maybe there's stuff going on there. So who the hell knows? But yeah, I think, let's put it this way: this is not going to define anyone's CS:GO career. So it's kind of hard to imagine that a lot of these tenured players are 100% putting their all into this. Really,
I think what you said there about FaZe having like a team on paper that should be doing really well makes it even more difficult for them
I
to
know.
look at changes, doesn't it? 'Cause it's like your players are good, they're good, they're title winners, they're champions. Like, how do you even go about trying to fix that? Brandon, do you have any thoughts on it?
On how to fix phase.
Yeah,
That's a
if
mean
you were the
question, isn't
GM,
it?
what are you doing?
Great. No, I'd be honest. I wouldn't do anything. Like, you, you can't. I don't think it's really fair to change a team who's won a Grand Slam, who are now transitioning into a new game. And let's be realistic. To circle back to your first question about whether CS2 soured the event for Pro League, I think the in group stages, and given the format of this tournament where it spans out for 5 weeks, and sometimes you're playing for 1 week, and then if you make it to playoffs you're waiting for like 2-3 weeks, plus you're going to be probably thinking about practicing CS2, never mind the game gets fully released. I think the competition was already kind of sour due to the format of it, and I think you then throw in the fact that CS2 does get released. I don't think it's fair to change anything on that FaZe team right now. I think you give it time, you let it see what's cooking on CS2. But then at the same time, the argument is, well, how long do you give them in CS2? Because is CS2 actually competitively ready? Spoiler: no, it's not. So are we gonna wait till are we gonna wait till it's ready? Are we gonna wait till the updates are fine, and then we're gonna give FaZe more time? That's why it's a hard question, because people will have different expectations on how long to wait for different things. So my personal feeling is you don't change anything right now, but maybe come the end of the year, if the game's in a better state and they're still sucking, then maybe you do make a switch.
You can be sure as hell that Carrigan's want to give it his all for the Copenhagen major as well. There is no way that they don't try and get themselves in tip-top shape for that. Like, it's what everyone's looking forward to, and especially when your IGL wants to win the tournament and in his home. Just a feeling that many
Yeah.
people don't get to experience, and Vitality got that chance. So, I mean, with the amount of Danish IGLs, surely one of them will win it. But I guess we'll see what happens there. Yeah, CS2 is just, it's here now, and I think a lot of people are sharing that same feeling of, is it esports ready? So, Aaron, have you had a chance to play much, and what's your
Yeah,
opinion?
yeah, I've been actually playing quite a bit, especially with some of my Aussie mates. I usually play every day about this time because they're up late playing also. So, I mean, for me, the game is not ready yet. There's a lot of inconsistency in the games when it comes to smoke, spraying, and stuff like that. But for me, the biggest thing that I hate in the game right now is the sound. I cannot fucking stand it. I can't like. There's just so many rounds like where I think the guy is so far away, but he's like right next to me, and there's like, and then it's not even talking about like where you have like Vertigo and Nuke with the up and down, and then like the sound is just so awkward and different from like CS:GO. Um, yeah, just not a huge fan of it at all when it comes to those things. But obviously, it's a new game, something fresh and something more fun to play right now. So yeah, as of right now, you can just be hopeful that Valve slowly fixes it because they're so fucking slow. So eventually, but yeah.
I'm glad you said
Definitely not
that
ready yet.
about the sound, because I've been playing some games, and there's definitely been rounds where I'm sure I've heard someone in a position that they're just not in. So,
Oh
but
man, there's even times where like I'm spectating someone, and I think from that point of view, he's hearing someone, but I'm actually just hearing his footsteps, and it's like echoed or something. Like I don't know, the sound is just cooked completely for me.
but if you give that call out, they're definitely like,
Oh, bro.
it's a pro player. He's giving me a
Bro,
call out.
I
Must be
feel so
fair."
bad when there was a call. There was like I made a call the other day. I think my guy was T side Mirage, like just behind the ramp towards T spawn, and I'm calling. Oh, you're hearing him top mid. You're hearing him top mid, but he's actually hearing himself. We didn't know that at the time. He runs out Palace, and the guy's just hiding in like firebox or something. I'm just like, ah, fuck that. Who said that? Like, I feel so bad, dude.
What's it been like as well playing? I imagine you're the one on the high ping when you're playing
Yeah,
Valorant.
yeah, right now I'm on the hyping it.
How is that? Because there's already been complaints
It's
about his toxic and all of that.
it's fucking mental warfare, bro. To be honest, like I have to be an Iron Monk to play that. Like the thing with CS:GO before, like even if I had like 250 to 300 ping, like when I'd shoot at someone, it would backtrack, so I would actually hit them on my screen, but it'd be a bit delayed. But now when I'm playing CS2, when I'm shooting at someone, it's completely behind them by like a second. So it's pretty shit, to be honest. So yeah.
We had NATO Suffix on last week, and he was talking about the test he was running with ROPS to see if he could decipher between 128 tick and 64 tick in CS:GO.
Yep.
And would anyone believe it? He got them all right. Um, so that really does show at the top level, at the very top level, how much that matters in this game. So Hawker, like, what can they be doing? I mean, it's probably not even a question that you could answer, not being working for Valve, but how long do you think that's going to take? Like, when can they get this fix in? And what are pros going to be doing? How much are they going to be complaining and struggling when we see them at Sydney?
Yeah, actually hope the players get on like feedback quite a lot here, because I think they do need to push back if they think it's really important. And I'm glad that we've got someone like Rops who is being quite vocal about it. The weird thing is, right? I mean, I don't know if I've been keeping track of this as much as some of you guys, so correct me if I'm wrong. But it's still like locked the tick rate, right? It's like you can't play 128 tick like at all, even on like custom servers. Is that right?
No, I don't think so. I think they completely updated it so it can't be touched at all.
Yeah,
So
like that's
yeah.
the wild thing, because I mean, we were kind of talking about this previously, where we were saying, listen, if you want matchmaking to be what it is, that's fine, but at least you need the option for pros to be able to play on the higher tick rate. It's like it's not the end of the world if it's not in matchmaking. I'm not. I actually think it would be okay, like, because we've always had, face it, we've always had third party platforms, and that's fine. Like, I get that you want the continuity where if a casual's watching a pro game, they can throw all the same smokes and the same lineups. But to me, that's not as important as actually getting a high quality level of pro Counter Strike game. And so I don't know. It's wild. I hope we see complaints, basically, if it is going to be like that at Sydney. Like, the pros really are going to have to push back if it is that bad, and it seems like it is quite bad right now.
Do you think that there's much reason for playing now on a third party? Because if it's not any different and they're still locked, like Brandon, would you choose to play Face It over matchmaking?
No, because like that's the whole point of why they've locked the tick rate, right? It's to actually get rid of like third party platforms and make it so everyone has got a centric point to kind of gauge where you're at. You can see in the game where people are ranking. And the easiest fix to this, Valve, which they're not going to listen to me, but just have 128 tick servers. Like, I'm not being funny. The amount of money that company makes, how difficult and how much more expensive is it to go from 64 to 128 tick servers across all of Counter Strike? If you had 128 tick servers in Premiere, sure, like, and at least face it, then you're gonna get the much better community feedback. Because when I was playing Face It on 128 on CS2, it actually felt really good. And I don't know if that's placebo, but when I've played it now, I've played Premiere, I've played Face It, it's ass. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems as well that they've got a great opportunity to do exactly what you're saying, because they released Premier Mode as their almost default way for you to be playing at the highest level in their client. And then you've also got what's it, per map ranks. You could easily have the per map ranks. It's still a 64 tick. You can save your money there. Just give Premier the 128 tick, and
Yeah. I mean, you
it
could.
would
We've even
solve a lot of
seen
it.
with Face It in the past, you could probably even charge like just a little bit a month, and people would pay it if that's what it takes to cover the server costs. People would absolutely be willing to pay it. And if you want it to be like a proper system where you in theory want maybe teams in the future to look at the top ranked players and be like, oh, maybe I'll give that guy a trial. If that's what you want, those sorts of players are willing to pay just like a tiny bit a month to get the good servers. And then maybe it also even helps with the cheating stuff, which I know some people have been complaining about, because that's the only reason you might play on a Face It now, is that anti-cheat is better because it's more intrusive. So that's the one reason you might still consider it. But yeah, I think if you want it to be like a proper system, that's something to consider. But I think overall, Brandon's probably right. They're probably making enough money where it would be worth just actually investing in the servers. But
Oh man, they got so much money. It's
I
fucking crazy,
know.
right?
There was a
Ugh.
figure, right, from the first day. I think it was like 4 million. It might have been 40 million. I want
I
to say
heard
4 million. I'll go
40.
on the lower end, but 40, yeah. So if that's the case from day one, I know day one release is going to be a lot higher than the rest of the month, but my God, like, surely that pays for your servers for the year.
Yeah, exactly right. Far out, man.
It's gotta be.
I mean, it's like it could be just like they could just look at it as like an investment, right? They make the servers
Yeah.
better, and then that just brings in more people for them to play CS2. Like it's for them, it's probably like it's like pocket change, right? They're just such a huge company, like they're making so much money. So yeah, I don't know. It's I mean,
Just
it's been the discussion for so long now, right? Even in CS:GO, like wanting to 128 tick servers for so long. So yeah, if I really wish like I mean this is I'm just going to compare it to like Valorant for example, like just like the system that they got going over there compared to like Counter-Strike is like just so much better. Like yeah, I don't know, it's just ridiculous that it's been this long and there's been not much communication about it too, so it's just very frustrating.
Yeah, I think even something else I'd like to bring up is, I don't know how you guys felt about the actual launch of the game, but I think one of the things that surprised me is it definitely it felt a bit different and it felt a bit better than the beta. But at least in my eyes, you only get the launch of Counter-Strike 2 once, and you could have made it so that there was more of a different feeling where some casual people come in and they're like, oh, there's this cool thing, there's that cool thing. But if you'd already played the beta, it got launched, and there was like a day or two where I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then I'm kind of like, well, I've already been playing this for a while, actually. It doesn't feel maybe as hype as it should. And I guess it's just the coming back to like, you only get the launch once, and that's going to be some people's first experience with the game. And maybe it could have been a bit more refined, or maybe there could have been a bit more, just something different added, I guess, is the kind of feeling that I had.
Yeah, I think the launch on Valve's end was a little bit underwhelming, but at the
Mm.
same time, you have so much hype built around this game that the community did a lot of it for them. It
True.
was all these videos of CS:GO ending. I mean, we did one ourselves. So I guess yeah, a lot of it comes from the community. But they waited for the server, like for all the matches to finish, close the servers, and then they changed the logo on Steam. It wasn't until the next day that they had a banner on Steam on the Steam store page for CS2, which was a little bit weird. But Brandon, I know you wanted to talk a bit more about the servers more we were just talking about.
I just googled how much does it cost to run a 128 tick server, and it came up with a Reddit thread from 10 years ago about asking if
Of
CS:GO
course.
if CS:GO can move from 64 to 128 tick on MM. Like, we've been having this issue for a decade, and you're right, Porker. You're saying, look, you only get the release of CS2 once. Imagine if they went, do you know what? It's a brand new engine. It's a brand new game. We've got 128 tick servers for absolutely everyone. You can walk into people and get collided off them, and you can slingshot down towards top mid. Like, I don't know. It's so annoying. Like, there's so many things wrong with this game. It's difficult for me to get excited about it. And it's such a shame because I really want to be excited about Counter-Strike 2. There's a lot of hype around it. But the current state the game is in, it makes me really upset. And sometimes I don't even want to play it.
I definitely
maybe
feel
I
that.
don't think it's as bad. I don't know, because like when it got released, I really felt like the hit reg got a fair bit better. I think the main thing that I still feel is that peek is advantage, and sometimes when someone's peeking around a corner, it feels a bit weird. It feels like you die a bit too quick. But overall, I actually think it's like, obviously we're comparing it to CS:GO, which makes it hard. But when I'm playing it, I actually feel like it's okay now. I actually feel like it's at least playable, which is a good start, I guess.
Yeah, for me it was like from the beta to the release, I definitely felt like it was a little bit smoother. But my expectations for the release was pretty high. I was
Sure.
expecting like 128 tick servers, maybe like some solo queue play or something like that. And then they released that and it's same shit, different day. It was pretty disappointing. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they released the announcement in March, so that's what 7 months that it's taken for this game to come out, or I guess 6 and a bit since it came out in September. But they didn't really change that much from the beginning in terms of like big updates, major content. It was let's release a new map every now and then when all the players that had a matchmaking rank got access to it, I kind of felt that was when the game released for me. Like
Yeah.
I was in it.
Yeah.
So now the game's released, I don't have that buzz to play the game. So I definitely do feel share a lot of how Brandon's feeling, I imagine.
Yeah, like look, it is good. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there are some very good elements to CS2. The hit reg, you're right, it's really good. The spray is better than what it was in beta. Guess what? I'd expect it to be better than it was in beta. It's still not all the way there. Like, some of my sprays are like, look, I'm not the best player in the world, but I know I can hit an AK spray. It goes miles out the way, and I'm just dead. And sometimes like when I'm swinging with the peaker's advantage thing, it's like even when I'm swinging someone, if they swing me slightly faster, I'm dead and I can't react. Like that's wild to me. And I think the fact that they haven't overhauled the economy whatsoever after swapping from MR15 to MR12 is an absolute shambles, because you can see how it's going to play out in pro play. But at the end of the day, my thoughts are it's going to be just a very T-sided meta, because everything's going to cost less for them. It's going to be awkward to play with your finances. If you lose both pistols, in my opinion, you're done for. So pistol rounds are going to be so much more crucial to pro play. They're going to be like a lot more intricate, in my opinion, to actually make it so that you get the victory. And then the bonus of winning the pistol, because you need to win these pistol rounds, otherwise you're basically screwed in pro play.
I think another thing, just going back onto the servers, I think last week, Hawker, you had your ESL jumper on, and so did NATO. And where we've been talking about getting the game, more centralized into CS:GO, everyone playing in matchmaking, you're then gonna anger ESL, who own Faceit, ESEA, and they are like one of the biggest tournament organizers in the game. So it's also another decision there where you're like, is that really the path you want to go down when you're taking a large, I don't know how large the revenue stream is from Faceit, but they run all the tournaments on there. Are they still going to continue to run the tournaments on there for all these big events? So it's just another weird decision for it.
Yeah, a big difference with like Valve compared to Riot, for example. And listen, I think Riot does some stuff really badly, but something that Riot does really well is they realize their game or esport is a massive marketing tool for their game. It's huge. The amount of people that probably play CS because they started watching some pro games or they heard about it through the esport is massive. And so for Valve maybe to not realize that and not invest into that, or at least be aware of the value it provides, is kind of crazy to me, because it really is a huge part of why the game has stayed popular for so long. It is that competitive aspect of the game. So I would love for Valve to be more aware of that. But I also understand that their philosophy is very sort of standoffish, and they just kind of want to let it happen. But it's not like they would even have to do too much. Just like a little more, to support the esport would be so nice.
Yeah, and just the game in general. I mean, it's the one thing we've been screaming about, as Brandon said, for a decade. 128 servers. It's all anyone wants, and they could just give it to us, but they don't want to. They keep teasing us with things like, "Oh,
Cheap
we've got
motherfuckers.
Subtick, haven't we? Subtick's great. Subtick will make everything feel just like it did on 128." No, no, it does not. I was playing a game the other night. I asked someone to boost me on the mid box on Vertigo. I'm sliding off their head. He's telling me he's standing up. I'm like, you're not standing up. I'm not tall enough to be able to get onto this box now. It just felt like I was in real life. It was not good. So yeah, I'm not enjoying CS2 quite as much at the minute. And I think you're definitely right. There are many things that need to be fixed, but it's just been released. So we can only hope for the best. The major's not until March, with the RMRs and the qualifiers for those being played out in January. So there's still plenty of time. And I think we'll probably see quite a few changes over the course of the player break, because that is a large time where competition's out and they can just full focus on it. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff with CS2. The other thing, Sydney, going to be the first big CS2 tournament. It's less than 2 weeks away. There was an article on HLTV that said what teams have been practicing, some of the teams that are EPL, and Vitality was one of them. So you'd imagine that they're going to have quite the head start over some of the other teams there. So yeah, I just want to ask, how much time and how important is this time from now until Sydney for these teams to get prepared? Is Sydney going to be a defining tournament in CS2 as the first one? Or do you think it's just going to be yet another tournament in the working outs of what this game is going to be?
Oh, who wants to take it?
Who wants to take that one?
I guess I could start. I mean, like, I would say for me personally, even for, I guess it's slightly different for CSGO, because I think at the start of CSGO, the competition was probably not quite as high as it's going to be in CS2. But I still do rate like some of the NIP early wins. I do have to rate them a little bit lower, because I don't think the competition was there as much. I think there'll be something similar with these events like Sydney, which is kind of why it's nice to have a bit of a lead up. I think there's so much intrigue though going into this event for how teams are going to play. As Brandon said, I expect it to be quite T-sided, but I'm also so interested in seeing what's Pika's advantage like on LAN compared to online. If it's nowhere near as big, that could be really interesting. If it is as big, I wonder if we just see teams on CT side being way more active and actually trying to make aggressive plays because they feel like they have to take initiative. There's a lot of stuff like that that's going to be quite interesting to watch, and I think it will mainly be fun to see which sort of teams do adapt quickest, because I would say, in-game leaders like Carrigan in the past have kind of been known as being innovators in a sense, and they've come up with some new ideas in CSGO. Does that continue in CS2, or is it actually so different that it ends up being a different team that has a completely different philosophy that works it out? I think that's the main intrigue we have for this tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some teams that figure things out that everyone else has to start to copy. And it's once the other teams start to figure out what the best way to play is, that's when I feel like we get it refined. And that's when I feel like we actually start taking the results seriously. For now, I think it's just fun to see who's going to adapt best.
Aaron, as an IGL, how do you think, like, how important are the coaches and the analysts, all the support staff, going to be in getting these teams ready? Because I imagine it's going to be the teams with the best support staff would probably more likely be the ones that are going to succeed in the early days.
Yeah, for sure. I think it being a new game is just about getting ahead as much as you can right now. So more support staff, the better, and having those people to help you is going to go a long way for sure. Whether it be finding smokes, learning new strats, doing new things, whatever. But for me, I sort of think okay, the way that I look at the aiming in CS2 right now, I feel like the ceiling is a lot lower just with how spraying is and tapping is and stuff like that. And to me, it sort of reminds me of Valorant. And in that sense, that I feel like it could make the game a lot more. I can't find the word right now, but a lot more even in a way that, like, maybe from every tournament to tournament, we won't have someone consistently going to the top because it can keep changing and changing, especially when the game's so new. So, yeah, that's how I look at least.
Would you like a meta like that, where you've always got a different winner? If that's what
I
you're trying
mean,
to say?
it's nice to have, but I want the skill ceiling to be high, right? Like in CS:GO, you've got riflers like Nico, who's the skill ceiling that he has with the rifle is insane. But I feel like in CS2, I mean, I think it might be lowered a little bit, and that might hurt him a little bit. But then again, I'm just guessing here, so I'm not completely sure. So for me, I want the ceiling to be the highest, just to be able to see the highest level of gameplay. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I was saying that's my gut instinct as well. Is it like it feels like it might be harder for individuals to really like have a performance so much higher than everyone else, and maybe it becomes more of actually like a team game. Because that's kind of how I feel when watching Valorant. I feel like it's really hard for one player to solo carry a game in Valorant. It just feels harder because there's so much more going on. I feel like that could actually happen in CS2 based on how the mechanics feel right now. It feels like maybe a little easier at times, and maybe not quite as responsive with like movement and stuff, which allows a lot of individual outplays. So we'll see. It's really interesting. There's so much you can speculate on. It's
Yeah,
really fun,
exactly.
honestly, to
Yeah.
speculate, but we're gonna have to wait and see. Is at the end of the day the final conclusion?
Yeah, just a question on that as well for Brandon. If Do you think that IGLs like Hooksy, who are notoriously known for fragging low, become valued more within that role because, did you say the ceiling's not as high? Maybe you don't have to do as much mechanically.
I think that IGLs get to their position not just because of their output, and I feel like a lot of people rag on Hooksy's individual level, but you take a look at the results that G2 have achieved, and it's because of his decision making, as the way he sets that team up. So I feel like there's a lot of value in him. Sure, if the ceiling comes down a bit, then maybe he can contribute a little bit more. But I think it's very interesting, just kind of listening to everyone, and my personal take on this tournament and how it's going to be is, if there's one team that has adjusted faster than anyone else, obviously they're going to be the favorites to win, but they'll kind of be the template, and that'll be the framework for most
Yeah.
pro teams to go and look at and be, okay, this is what they did. Well, this is kind of a baseline. This tournament is going to be quote unquote meta defining, because you're going to be finding out how certain teams address situations, what's the best way to go and approach a different scenario, and it's going to be really interesting to watch. I think I'm really excited to see it, just because I want to know how the teams are going to adapt and what they think is valued highly in MR12 compared to MR15, and what rounds are going to be the breakpoints, because we're going to have different economy breakpoints now, in my opinion. I don't think the first stage and the second stage loss are actually going to be directly linked to when you're going to invest. I think it's going to be dependent on round break points, and when you think you can have the best opportunity to try and take a round away, especially on CT side, for example, because I'm in agreement that it's going to be slightly more T-sided. So if you can invest and you think you've got a little strat that you can pull out to get that bonus round based on the money that you currently have, I think that'll be really interesting to see. And if we're talking about Team CS being the best, then Virtus Pro are going to win every tournament. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where that goes. They're not at Sydney, unfortunately, but that gives them even more time to cultivate a masterclass.
And Aaron, when metas get defined, because I know we spoke about it, I think, on the EPL podcast when Astralis, and we asked you about IGLs that you look up to in on other videos on the channel that we've done, and you said Glaive is one of them. How quickly do you jump on those trends that they've set, and how easy is that to do?
I mean, to hop onto it, for sure, it's pretty easy. You just obviously watch some demos, see how they play, and you talk about it as a team. But yeah, sort of blanked then for a second because my missus just got home. But for me, like, I feel in the past it's been pretty easy, I would say. But I think for me, like, the thing that would be the trendsetters the most, like, I don't know, I'll take an example right now too. Is just like small things, like, because I don't think teams in CS2 will have enough time. I think small things like smokes will be like certain smokes. Like, for example, you can go back to like 2019, and then Vanguard brought out like a smoke on Dust 2 that lands on the box in CT on like as you're coming out short. So it will give you more space to come up if you know which smoke I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I feel like stuff like that will be so important right now leading into this, like, to Sydney, just because of like the lack of time. And small things like that will just get you rounds, right? But I think when it becomes to defining a whole meta, there's obviously going to take a bit longer. But when it comes to an IGL taking ideas from other IGLs, like, I think that's fairly easy. But then having your own spin-off too is very important to like create more ideas and flow that with the team. So yeah.
Do you think it's going to be a case where like IGLs are just going to be dead set with their coach working endless hours now that CSP is out?
I mean, yeah, for sure. I think people are going to grind like crazy, right? Because this is the time to set the, like we've been saying, set the meta and get ahead. So I think it's not only just up to the IGLs and coaches though, right? I think it's up to the players to start working pretty damn hard also and seeing what they can find. And it could be like a show and tell thing, like every day, you know, like they come to theory practice and you're like, oh, what'd you find, boys? We did this, you can spin off this or whatever. Like there's just like a lot of things you can do, and it's about putting in the hours right now. So yeah, that's for
I
sure.
will also quickly add something that I find very intriguing is that Challenger League starts in 2 days on Counter-Strike 2. That's a lot of the tier 2 and tier 3 teams. And like in the past, some of these teams, a lot of top teams will tell you they just steal strats from like tier 3 teams sometimes because they are grinding to come up with new stuff. That's actually maybe going to be a bit of a proving ground for what's working. I guess the only difference is it's online, so maybe that changes things slightly. But that's honestly something worth keeping an eye on. I'm going to be watching some of these Challenger League games and really looking at some of the teams. I'm not sure if, because I know there was the article of the teams that were practicing CS2 earlier. I'm not sure exactly if all those teams are playing in this Challenger League or not, but it's definitely going to be worth watching those matches and seeing how it goes early.
Yeah, for sure. Like I feel like, oh, sorry, bro.
Sorry, is that the finish one?
Oh,
Is
I've got no idea.
The finish challenge
it's like
tournament?
Challenger League, just like
I think it's
so
like for
used to be
Katowice,
NBL,
right, or something like that.
Yeah.
Isn't there a
Yeah.
tournament on or being played today?
Oh,
Might be
maybe.
wrong.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
That's it. I
sorry,
wish there was like
yeah.
some way to keep track of which
Yeah.
tournaments
the
are
Young
CS2.
Shipping Open qualifiers, I think, are today.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry, Azza, go ahead with what you were going to say.
Fuck, what was I gonna say?
I've cut you off now.
I'm gone, bro. I can't remember what I was gonna say now. I blanked again. I can't remember.
About the tier 2 and tier 3 teams.
Oh
maybe?
yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Yeah, tier 2 and tier 3 teams. Like, I feel like even in CS:GO, like a lot of these teams in tier 2 and tier 3, they all like they're constantly playing each other, like in these cups, like all the time, Pinnacle, CCTV, whatever, and they're always making like a lot of new things that tier 1 hasn't even seen. I feel like little smokes or just like little things like that, and I feel like that could be like these teams can actually come up with just because of these, like how hard they work and stuff like that, because I feel like they can get ahead that way so much because of how it's been in the past. Like I remember like every time I cut, like in the past, when I was playing back in 100 Thieves or Renegades or something, you'd always, when you come to Europe and you play against these tier 3 and tier 2 teams, you're always going to fucking learn something every single time, because there's just so many different play styles from each country and everyone's doing something else, and there's always something to learn. Where, like, I remember back in America, you'd have the tier 2 and tier 3 teams, and same shit, different day. But when Europe, like, there's just so many different play styles, people learning so much stuff, and you're gonna learn so much stuff. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Wouldn't it be crazy if an Aussie team or an Asian team set the meta?
Oh
Then
man,
everyone has
imagine,
to
bro.
learn.
Imagine the Tyloo playstyle comes back to CS2, running through smokes,
Yeah.
being aggressive. Like,
Brandon, is there anything you want to say about these tier 2 tournaments that have been going on or will be happening?
Not so much the tier 2 ones. Just a shout out to ESL Impact as well, because they've swapped mid season from CS:GO to CS2. First officials of that are this week. And speaking to some of the players, they don't really know what to make of it, but they're excited to kind of get involved and see what it's about. So if you did want to watch any CS2 gameplay, earliest indications of it, obviously, Yongshipin, which is going on as the time we're recording this, but also ESL Impact Wednesday, Thursday.
And I will say as well, I can't talk too much about the details of it, but it seems that players want to be playing CS2 tournaments that have been playing CS:GO or will be starting before, the Sydney, at least they want to play CS2, and it makes complete sense because the game's coming out, and why wouldn't you want to get on it as
Yeah.
soon as possible?
exactly. Yeah. I mean,
I'm
it's
s-
like, isn't it like Blast right now? Is that like the last tournament that's playing like CS:GO? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, and you've got teams like G2, and like you got some big names there, and then they got to. I mean, I'm assuming they're still going to practice CS:GO a little bit at least till then, till like heading into Sydney. But it's just a massive waste of time, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, it should have been changed instantly. Like, I don't know what Blast is doing. I think it's ridiculous, but yeah,
It's even
It's
more
so
og
weird.
quick.
yeah, it really is.
It's a qualification event, so they're obviously going to give it their all in CS:GO, but you're going to play the tournament that you qualify for his event in CS2. So why not? Maybe they just haven't got the required parts yet that they think it's ready to from a production standpoint. There's many different things. It's odd.
It has to be, because like it would be such a big win for them. Even if I'm Blast, I'm sitting there doing anything I can to make it CS2 and get the first games and get the first events. You get G2's first CS2 game, you get like Monacy's first CS2 game in a Blast
Exactly.
event. That would be huge. Everyone would be so hyped. But now it's, if anything, I'm probably going to watch more of the online CS2 games than this Blast. Like, I'll keep track of it, but I don't know. I'm not going to be watching that intently. That's for sure.
See Brandon had his hand up.
Yeah, we love the lag and the internet. I think for CS2 as well. I think what I've kind of heard from like different people is that especially like with some of the games that have been played on CS2 already, there's no coach slot in the game yet. So that's an interesting
Oh,
one for competitive integrity, maybe for Blast as well. Maybe they wanted to kind of have that, and then because you kind of if you're the first tournament being on CS2, whilst that is a lot of bragging rights, and whilst that is, you're right, like G2, some of these big teams, you also have then got to kind of draw the lines and kind of be in that grey area of what's acceptable now for coaches, how much can they contribute in as well. And maybe also just kind of getting some of the servers to work was a little bit of a headache. I um, said about so I didn't say, but I'm going to say about some of the Cash Cup games that happened this weekend as well on CS2. Apparently, getting those to work, the servers, for some of them were an absolute nightmare. So it could just be a logistics thing as well. And then they're not ready because it's
yeah.
come out and they've got like a week to sort it. So I think agreed. If it could be played on CS2, it should be played on CS2. But given the fact that Valve like to just drop announcements, oh hey, by the way, CS2, here it is. Maybe they didn't give any notice to ESL and Blast.
Yeah, might be something there as well with that. But it's also the case it's a best single elimination, isn't it? I believe for the
Yes.
Showdown events. So
Yes.
it's not too big a deal. I don't imagine the teams will be too unimpressed by it not being on CSO. I'm sure it's going to annoy them, but at least it's not a whole play in a group stage and then playoffs. It's just play your matches, and if they really wanted to, they could just leave early. They don't care about Blast. Who knows? They might get invited back at the end of the year anyway if they in the rankings, because I believe the way the Blast World Finals work is based on rankings and qualification. Could be wrong, but I believe that's how it was last year. So who knows what teams are going to do. But yeah, I imagine they are a little bit pissed off that they're not allowed to play CS2 straight away. So the Blast event, it's the last one of CSGO. As you were saying, Hawker, you're probably going to look towards some of the more CS2 games that are happening. Do you think that's going to hurt viewership of this last Blast event?
Yeah, probably. I think I'm also I'm a little, I guess, scared. Like I'm a little scared that some of these lower ranked teams, like Alliance or someone, are just still going to be grinding CS:GO because it's actually a huge opportunity for these guys. Whereas if I were G2 or Cloud9, I might genuinely only practice CS2 and just show up and play the CS:GO games to the best of my ability. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get more funky results. I think, to be fair, the showdowns always weren't like the biggest deal for Blast. They're there because they have to be type thing, and they make them quite quick. I think that's why you get single elim anyway, which some people complain about. But it is sort of a last qualifier whatever stage. So I guess it's not the end of the world. I don't think they were expecting the viewership to be that high anyway, but yeah, probably will affect it a little.
I'd be surprised if.
Sorry, go ahead, Azza.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'd be surprised if some of these teams can even find practice. Like, it was the coach from Imperial was Zach. He was tweeting out earlier that he can't find any team. I think it's in NA. I'm assuming that he couldn't find any practice at all in CS:GO.
Yeah.
So that's also another thing to look into. I'm assuming it's the same in EU. To be honest, I'm assuming there'll be, I don't know, maximum 5 teams probably practicing CS:GO right now. So yeah.
That's what people were saying about EPL playoffs as well, was that surely there's not going to be too many teams actually practicing CS:GO at that point. But yeah, you could be devil's advocate as well for the Blast event and say, well, you should have qualified through the last event that they had and not been in Showdown in the first place. So there is also that. It's some of the teams that qualified from that first one, NIP being one of the names. I think they 2-0'd Vitality there and things like that. You've got, yeah, there are some odd fixtures and results from that. So we'll see what happens at this Showdown. I am surprised at some of the names here when I looked at it again recently. I mean, what, Ents, Cloud9, G2, any ones I've missed out that are big? I think they're quite, I think 9 are there as well. So quite a few big names. And then you look at the Americas one, you've got Liquid, EG, Complexity. I think that's a first round match as well, Complexity, EG. I could be wrong. Well, they're in the same bracket, but yeah. It's very, like, they're tough matches and some fairly big names as well to be in a tournament that, you know, teams will have to consider quite highly now because it is a qualification event, but it's not on CS2, so yeah, practice is going to be tough to find as well. So based on that information, I'm just going to ask you guys for your predicted winner from both, and then we'll move on to talk about some rumors and other things. But if we start with the EU one, we'll start with Brandon. Brandon, who do you think is going to win this event? I know this is a very tough question because there's so many more like considerations to take for this event because of CS2. But if you've got to throw a name out there, who you taking?
It's one winner, right, to get through?
I believe so.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm just looking at the bracket.
You predicted Mouse. I believe you can do anything now.
I think, you know what, you're gonna get based on rumors that are going around as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Cloud9 go out of a bit of a bang and they can do it. So we'll go Cloud9. There you go, one team. I'm sticking to it.
Okay. How about you, Jorge?
I feel like the safest bet here is probably like Ents, because I think they might actually take it still somewhat seriously, whereas I feel like G2 might not. And then Cloud9 are just the biggest roll of the dice ever, which Brandon might get right again. But yeah, obviously rumors that they might make a roster move. And sometimes that just means a team goes mad and just frags out. And if any team could do that, in theory, it would be Cloud9. But bloody hell, their T sides look so bad at Pro League. Like, actually so Yeah, it was tough. It was really tough to watch. So I can't, in good faith, pick Cloud9, especially after I've been dick riding them the last 2 events and they've been awful. I can't do it anymore.
It's
And
been a bit
if-
of a downfall for them. I
if
mean, there were some
Brandon
big
gets it right,
expectations.
Yeah.
Brandon, if you get it right, we will be glad that Pinnacle doesn't offer markets in the UK. Because you'll be
Oh,
taking all
yeah.
the money.
Yeah, that's true. To be fair, I don't know. I feel like what Hawker said's right. I feel like Ents is the safest bet. If you want to be boring, you can say Ents are going to win. But if you think about it, CS2, if Cloud9 have been practicing on that, it's T-sided. They're gonna have all that experience bringing it back over to CS:GO. And I think that it being serious for a moment, I think if you are making a roster change, there are going to be players that want to go out with a very good rating. And so I think that you kind of do see that towards the end of teams, even if they are going to definitely make a move. Some events, they just pop off. So that's kind of what I'm banking on for my little prediction.
How about you, Azza? You gonna play it safe, or are you gonna go like
I
Brandon's
mean,
done?
for me, I'm just going to go for G2 just because, Justin's there. I'm hoping they win for sure. But the thing that I look at it also is like it's online Counter-Strike. I feel like anything can happen. It's like, I don't know, Nine could just come out and win the whole thing. Big could just come out and win the whole thing. Like, I don't know. It's online CS. It's very inconsistent. So I'll definitely back G2. But yeah, anything can happen.
Yeah, like you say about online Counter Strike, and I mean we saw Big do very well at EPL as well. Crimbo played extremely well. I was checking in on Maui's streams of that, and he was loving every minute after Brandon brought that up on the last pod. But yeah, the Americas one. We'll go back around the other way. So Azza, the Americas one.
Americas.
Who you got?
Man,
Are Liquid playing with the same lineup still? There's the rumors.
I think they're using Dabs, right? For
They're
that
using
one.
Yeah, that's what
DAPS as
it is, yeah.
IGL.
Yeah. I don't even know. For me, it feels like anyone could win this. Also,
Yeah.
I mean, usually I'd just be like, "Oh, Liquid, that's for sure." But I'll probably go with Complexity. They look pretty solid at EPL. I'd say ever since they picked up Elige, they've been on definitely on the improvement for sure. What he's brought over from Liquid. So yeah, I'll go with Complexity.
Okay, Hawker, who are you thinking?
I mean, we know Fallen keeps saying it's his last dance on every new team he joins, and it's the true last dance in CS:GO for Fallen and Furia, baby. Let's go. This is free for Furia. Yeah,
How
but
about you,
really, I
Brandon?
think I'm just literally just flipping a coin and picking a random team. I'm not gonna lie.
Here you go, Brandon.
Imperial.
Nice.
Look, they just picked up Lucas. It's now Lucas and Henny. The boys are back together. You've benched Jota now, which I mean he ruined my fantasy team, so bye. And yeah, look, I think they've got actually a really easy bracket. They're playing against Daps on Liquid, like Henny will farm. And then Complexity versus EG. That should always be a Complexity win. Complexity versus Legacy, because Legacy is going to beat Furia. A Cold Zero Masterclass against a Liege. And then suddenly it's Imperial versus Legacy in the final. And Imperial
Just so
are
we're
going
clear,
to win.
Brandon, do you know the last official game Lucas won is played on HLTV?
I haven't seen it, no.
It's back in March 2022, actually. In the
Yeah, he's been
MLB.
cooking offline.
It's a while.
Yeah, it's a long ass time ago.
What team was he on then?
A team called ELES, and then before that, 00 Nation.
The 3rd
God.
of March 2022, where they beat B4 in OT in a
Been
best
saving
of
his
one.
power for the Blast Showdown. NA. He's
Called him
powering up.
for a master.
The last time he won on HLTV, he was with Henny, is all I'm saying. The last time he
Fair
lost,
enough.
he was also with Henny, but we're not talking about that.
So it's nice though that we've got 3 different predictions for each tournament. It's not often that happens, but I guess Brandon rolling the dice all the way. Yeah, if you're right again, Brandon, then we need to have some serious conversations about how you're getting these results? Like, who's
I,
talking to you?
if I'm being genuinely serious, I wanted to pick Imperial because it was a different team. If I put my serious hat on, I would say Complexity, but fuck being serious, it's gonna be Imperial.
So there's no faith in Liquid.
No.
Yeah, I
None?
guess not.
Nah, not from his head.
Okay, well, I guess it's a good talking point to go on to what's happening with them. It's Rainwaker out, who I always end up calling Rainwalker. I don't know why, but that name just doesn't sit right with me. But yeah, Rainwaker's out and Daps is in. IGLing as well for the event. So, Hawker, do you think this is something that is going to be a permanent basis, or do you think that? I mean, you'd imagine if Daps has come into IGL, Yukinda's no longer going to be doing the role. So, do you think it's going to be Daps in now for good, or they're going to look for another IGL, or what do you think they're going to do?
Kind of depends on what Daps wants more than anything, I think, because when we had Nitro deciding he wanted to go, he clearly just wasn't motivated anymore. And if your in-game leader isn't motivated, that's the worst thing that can happen because he needs to be on top of the stuff that's going to be changing. But CS2 could give him a new lease of life, could get him excited about grinding again. I still think the roles are a bit dodgy. I do also think Rainwaker just mechanically, I don't think he's good enough for top tier Counter Strike. Sadly, from what I've seen, maybe he would have a better fit on a better team because I actually think he was quite similar to how Naf played on some of his old squads. And like you can sort of have two players like that, but it's kind of hard to have two of those really late round players on the same team. So I don't think it was the perfect fit for him here. Maybe he could do all right on another team in the future. Who knows? But it is still going to be tough, I think, for Daps to figure out how to use Yakinda and Patsy, because those are also two incredibly similar players in the past, just both playing crazy aggressive. Maybe you just use Yakinda as that aggressive player on the opposite side of the map, because that's kind of what VP used to do in quite a few rounds. They would just literally have Yakinda creating space and just trying to cause chaos on the other side of the map. But I do think if someone was going to give some structure back to this team, Daps is a good shout. And I do feel like that's a change that had to happen because I look at someone like Naf on this team. I think if you've got a good structured team, Naf is going to clean up and always be a good player based on what we've seen in the past. And on this Liquid, the fact that he hasn't been that good suggests to me he's not getting put in these late round positions in enough scenarios. So I don't mind the change personally. If Daps is motivated, I actually think this is a good change because you also go back to NA, right? And that NA RMR, you kind of want to be playing that. That's going to be so much easier in the future. So I'd like the change overall. I hope they stick to it.
And if they do end up looking for an IGL, Azza, how long before they come knocking?
I'm down. Let's go, boys.
If you were to, completely hypothetically, if you were to get a spot on this team as the IGL, would you push for a role change or push for another change? Because as Hawk is saying, the roles are very similar with Patsy and Yukinda.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like in the past, I would say that it definitely makes things awkward for the aggressive player of the team. Like, for me to get the best out of players, I would just want consistent roles from everyone. It's just like, I mean, in Liquid right now, it's like you've got Rainwaker, who's like Hawker said, he probably hasn't been there all the great individually. To be honest, he's like obviously had some harder roles on City side being anchors, but on T side when he's lurking, like he should be putting up the numbers and stuff, right? So I feel like if Keith can get back into that role, like of being able to end rounds and do his thing, like the guy's a fucking beast. But he's just been, I mean, I think there was like an article not long ago where he said he's just changing like roles every other single day. Like it sounds like a massive waste of time. I don't know what they're doing with that kind of shit, but that just shouldn't be happening, especially with a player like Keith. So yeah,
Definitely a player that you could see on any tier 1 team as well and making an impact. So
for
you
sure.
don't want to lose
The
him.
guys,
Don't mess him about.
he's so fucking good. Like I mean, I played with him. Like it was a long time since I played with him now, and obviously he's improved a lot since then. But the guy is just so good. He can just win you rounds just like that. He takes initiative. He'll want to do stuff. He's just an all-round really good player. And yeah, it's sad for me to see him being the person that's like has to take like the shitty roles or whatever you want on a team. Like it's like I said, you're just completely wasting Keith's time and the team's time because you're not getting much out of him.
It's also just like he's been so consistent throughout his CS career that it's like if I see him play badly, I kind of know something's going wrong with the team because I am so sure that it's not him that's going to be an issue on any team in the past. So yeah.
I mean, it's like you said, yeah, consistency. He is like the pillar of consistency. Like in the past, especially when Liquid was at their best, like he would always be delivering. So I hope they can get him back to where he wants to be, and I'm sure he can like take Liquid to the higher level again for sure.
And what are your thoughts on Liquid at the minute, Brandon?
Yeah, they aren't great, are they?
So
I mean,
monotone.
I've been hearing roster rumors about NIP getting rid of Brolin plus Keith. There you go, great change.
Wait, what? Really?
Don't tease that, Brandon. Please don't. You know how happy that would make me. I'd be dancing around my room.
I know. That's why.
Yeah, we got the Nip fanboy up here, don't we?
Yeah. I said it specifically for your benefit, Archie. Look,
and I heard that they have leadership problems as well. So what's that? Alza, Naf.
2 birds, 1 stone. What?
Naf on the joining Rez and Hampus and Headtree. Oh, there's something there.
To actually answer your question. To answer your question though, about Liquid, it's just I feel like the biggest thing with Liquid is I feel like they've lost their identity, and that was always going to happen when they switch to EU and when they become predominantly an EU team again. And it's just about trying to find the correct blend of players that where you don't have any conflicts. I think you're completely right, Hawker. I think the fact that you've got Naf, rainwaker having similar roles, and the fact you've got your Kindar when he's not IGLing having similar roles to Patsy is a real struggle. And it's a shame because they had so much belief in this project when they announced it, so much so that they've actually transitioned to an European team. For them to drop it so early, there must be some serious complications that they didn't think of when this first got put together. And it's a shame because I actually really want that team to do well because I got a lot of affinity for a lot of the players. I got a lot of like affections for just watching them over their career. So it's sad that it's not working out, and I hope that they can find more clear identity in their roles, more of a structure that benefits everyone. But that's going to be difficult to do with the pieces that they've got.
I mean, it's probably the best time for them to be making a change as well. I mean, actually, no, the way they are doing it is probably the best way. If Daps comes in to take this event, if they don't want Daps in their team, they get to practice some CS2 and see who best works for CS2, rather than what a lot of the teams have done, which is make changes in speculation of what CS2 is going to be like and how their team may perform in CS2. So
wait, hang on, sorry, what's going on then? Is it a temporary bench?
So yeah, the way that HLTV said it, it's a temporary bench of rainwaker, but I don't believe there's any talk on whether it was a temporary addition of DAPS or a permanent addition. I'm just going to assume if it's a temporary bench, it's a temporary addition.
Wait, so DAPS could be by the way, playing as their 5th player permanently. That's wild.
Yeah. I'm going to have to bring this up because there's just been an article in HLTV saying that Zonic has basically said he's going to move to Falcons in November in an exclusive interview with Deserto. So,
well, we were just about to move on to this point as well, so it couldn't have been perfect timing, could it? We were going to talk about this as a very speculative thing, because of some information that maybe not so mystic member of our group may have had. So Zonic's moving to Falcons is the rumor. And
it sounds like he's just come out and said it in an interview based on what I'm reading.
Yeah, so it doesn't look like that's a rumor anymore.
Few things that we can talk about from this then, because we discussed it briefly before we started on whether it was worth discussing. We related it quite heavily to the way that the Premier League is, with these Saudi teams and the Saudis owners buying these teams, and then they just have tons of money to splash about. Zonic is a big name, one of the most decorated coaches in the game. If they have him and they have the money, like who do Falcons buy at this point? Do they just have an endless range to buy? I did see another rumor, and this could be complete utter nonsense because I saw it on Twitter, but it was that they were also targeting Magisk and Dupree, and that Twist was looking for Vitality was the other rumor. But yeah, basically, sorry, I'm getting too sidetracked from the original question. This is very exciting because they have so much. I imagine they have so much money. I mean, the amount of money they probably spent on Kenny S and that whole announcement. Like, yeah, this team is wild if they can pick up any player, if anyone wants to join that team. That is the appeal huge now for them, like for players to go to this team?
I mean, yeah, for sure, right? Being able to play under Zonic, I think a lot of players would want to do that, and obviously being able to get paid a lot while doing that would definitely help people's mind at ease to go over there. So, I mean, the sky's the limit if this is the way it goes. If Zonic has whatever money, like, can grab whoever he wants. I mean, yeah, sky's the limit. Like, it could be something massive.
Sorry, I'm reading through this now.
Yeah,
it's
same.
it's,
I-
it's wild.
Christ.
So now I'm a bit
It-
confused though. Like, are they removing all their players? Are they keeping their team that they've currently got? What's going on?
It's what he's saying is it basically sounds like he's been signed by them and they're basically telling him become the #1 team in the world. So if that's what they're telling him, then I assume he's got a lot of freedom to make a lot of changes. I think this could really actually shake up CS:GO esports so massively. Not just the
Yep.
actual fact that he's probably going to have a lot of ability to sign players, but dude, if Zonic now comes to another team and makes them the best in the world, at what point do organizations just start to say, coaches are really important? Like, this guy did it on Astralis, does it on Vitality. You look at someone like Glaive. I actually tweeted out recently, well, I don't know why we've heard nothing about Glaive. Like, surely at some point he comes back. But anyway, he's still on Astralis. But yeah, this could actually be huge. I think the interesting thing here is, so ZywOo, I just can't see him leaving Vitality. It feels like he's one of those players that is like almost the org is just there for him. It's the French connection. There's so much going on there. So it's going to have to be a different team. I'm just wondering what sort of players will be attracted to this right now. Like, Simple has to be in the discussion, but he's another one who feels like he has a really close connection with Na'Vi. The team looks like they're trending in the right direction. So what sort of big superstar player do you get? I guess that's the first question I'd be thinking about if I were this Falcons project right now, because those names might become more likely to join in the future. But right now, I don't know if there's an obvious name they could go for.
I think from
Cadian.
November as well was Cadian.
Big superstar name Cadian now.
But like, if they are going to do this from November as well, as we were just saying about like the Liquid move, best time probably to do it is now. Get players see CS2.
Yeah.
He's going to have seen pretty well a lot more than most of the teams have. So yeah, his options are going to be fantastic, really.
By the way, quickly, rumors also Magisk and Dupree might follow him. That's the rumors right
Yeah,
now.
that was what I
So,
saw on
yeah.
Twitter, and then it was Twists of Vitality as a potential conversation.
Wow.
I imagine we've got some Prodigy in our audience for this recording. I imagine they are clutching at their contracts very closely for the likes of ZywOo and some of these other big players now that these have happened, and they'll be on the lookout. So yeah, very interesting. It's going to be a busy period over the next few months, I imagine, for these teams.
Oh,
Not only to try and keep
breaking
their
news.
players, but
Breaking news as
It's the
well.
breaking news
VP
podcast.
they've been invited to ESL Challenger Yongchaping, so that's the first time we're going to see VP win a tournament in
Big.
CS2. Yeah.
Easy. The era begins.
that's where they set the meta. Yeah, that is some huge news because we were going to talk about it before, and it's confirmed. Pinnacle Stack confirmed. That's it.
It's
But,
wild, though.
yeah, that
Jesus.
is. Who would you look to go for, and if this was your situation, Aaron? Like, what are the type of players that you would look for?
I mean, it is. Can I grab anyone at all?
Anyone you want.
Well,
If you had
yeah.
to pick one superstar, and like as your
But I
first
don't think
choice,
like
who do you
ZywOo
pick?
and Simple would join right now. I think they might actually not join.
But I mean, ZywOo's contract, didn't he sign like a 5-year contract with Vitality?
I think so. ZywOo's the
Yeah.
like Simple at some point. I could imagine being tempted by this.
Yeah, probably less so now that they've just made a final and
That's the problem.
they've
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
created this new team. I would have said he's got a whole lot of national pride, but the team went international. He still has a whole lot of national pride,
I
but
think he
because the
still
team's
feels pretty.
international,
I imagine him feeling close to the
yeah,
Navi org still, though, is
yeah.
the thing.
So
Yeah.
him leaving, I would have said is a lot less likely had that team not gone international. But yeah, sorry, back to what I was asking as a who, if you were to pick one superstar,
So I can't pick from those two at all, Simple and
yeah,
Zoe,
I mean,
or I can.
if you could, yeah. Like, let's say they're off the table since
See off the table.
best two players off the table.
Let me have a look just real quick. I mean, I think for like if I was to pick up like a star Orpa, and if it was possible, the next person after those two would probably be Device.
Yeah.
And that's a very
Obviously,
likely
there's
option.
Zonic
with-
has those two have a lot of history together, so I feel like if but it's also like Device just came back to Australis. He probably signed a very long contract over there too, but if Falcons got the money, make it happen, boys.
And it's gonna be really weird seeing Falcons jerseys at the Copenhagen Major.
Yeah, bro.
Like that would be very odd because it's a team we've just not really seen up to this point. Yeah, we saw them at the qualifying stages at the major, but beyond that, yeah, not really. A whole lot of green we might see in the crowd coming up. So yeah, if we want to move on from that rumor, or not, no longer a rumor, I guess, confirmed that Zonic will be joining them in November. Another big change that happened recently is Fret joined NIP as the general manager, which is massive news for him going back to NIP. He did a whole video of him having conversation about what needs to be changed and what the problems are. He mainly pointed out that there was a lack of leadership and a problem with roles. I just want to say, I think since we did the EPL podcast last time with you, Azza, we
Mhm.
were saying about this.
Yeah,
And
it's fucking awesome news to be
yeah,
honest.
if he needs an assistant to the GM, I'm here. Just want to say I was already on that, saying there are role issues, there's changes needed. I think it was all wrong. Brolin's the first name that seems to have been put up as a minus. And Brandon, what are you thinking about Brolin being the first, if there is going to be more player to go?
I just feel bad for Bronner really because he left Fnatic to play in a Swedish team and then NIP went international. So the guy can't really get a break. I think you look at his stats, not been performing that great. Makes sense, and maybe want him out the door. Maybe he's not really happy playing in international projects. So maybe that makes sense on paper, and he just wants to be done with it. Where does he go though? That's the next question. Because if you move in Brolin, I'm not being funny. He needs to go on a team. Where's he going?
Yeah, and there's not really any top Swedish teams at the minute that
No, not at
you
all.
could see him on. And if he's underperforming on an international team, is that too much of an appeal for other teams to take him? It's yeah. I also share the sentiment of feeling particularly bad for Brolin because he came into this team at such a height and such an expectation that just hasn't been met.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to end up on like an alliance or someone. I mean, we've seen a couple of players sort of make that sort of move, going to a lesser, I guess, regional team. I think Refresh has gone to a Preezy, hasn't he? Like, there's still options, but they're not as exciting. We probably won't see Brolan much if that's the case.
Could see him back on Eyeballers with JW.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, like that's the sort of team he's gonna have to go to, honestly. And yeah, that's a shame because he was a real talent. So, yeah. Yeah,
Do you think
interesting.
it's got to do with just him going from his like, let's say, mini downfall or whatever, like he's gotten a little bit worse over time? Do you think it's got to do with like him going into an international roster, or do you think it's got to do with like them just constantly changing roles like madmen? Like,
It's
for
definitely
me,
got
that's the biggest thing, right? When I look at that team, there's so many aggressive players, not many like natural anchors. Like, it just looks like there's just no consistency whatsoever. And I think we said that last time in the EPL podcast. Like, I think now what Thread has said, like, they're gonna obviously remove people, and I think that's the best, like, short term loss for like long term like goals, right? Like, I think this will be the best for the like whoever's leaving, but also like staying. Also, like, it'll be good for both parties, just because I'm assuming just people just dislike their roles in that team because it just does not. When I look at the lineup, and I said last time, it does not make sense at all. It's like, yeah, I don't know, just does not make sense.
If we bring it back to the podcast we did previously, months and months ago now, I think what we spoke about as well was when Config came into this team, that's you already got 2 aggressive players at that point, and I think losing S-Tag, they took him out because they didn't want him to play on the AWP, but you've got a player there that could have played those positions, so maybe that was a bit of an oversight on their part, but again, you're looking for stars and you're looking for players, and you've got a name like Prob, and you're going to give him the time. And someone like Config, who came off the back of pretty good performances whilst he was in Astralis, again, you're going to give them the time. So, yeah, it really is a wonder of how far do they take it. They've said leadership problems, which, I mean, we're aware of. That's the main position that they've changed. Does that mean Hampus goes as well? And if so, are there many leaders out there at the minute that would be available?
Yeah, I don't know who they would get, to be honest, if that was the case. Like, yeah, no idea. I have no idea what Nip are going to do right now, just looking at the lineup, who they're going to remove, because it's like Config, Rez, Hampus, Braun, all pretty aggressive players, and then you got Hedrick, the AWP. So for me, they've got to at least remove one of the other like aggressive players, and yeah, I don't even know. I guess it's a fucking chaos, mate. Just looking at it.
You'd think if they
Where
replaced
is
Alexi B for
S-Tag?
Hampus that they're sitting on the bench.
I think he's just on the bench, right? Just chilling. Yeah.
Get him on Falcons.
Falcons? Where the fuck did that come from?
He's just like one of the most versatile role players. Like, maybe not on the AWP, we saw that, but you know, we'll get him on the other roles. He seems to be able to take that spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really is a concern of like, who do they like? What do they do with it? You say they've got a load of aggressive players, and it seems like they went through a lot to bring Hampus back. They let him have his break. They brought Alexi B in for that short time, and then they just removed him so they could get Hampus back, which is a big decision. And Rez is like their legacy player at this point. So yeah. Wonder if you've got any thoughts on this, Walker, about what they could do.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Good luck, Threat. It's a tough job. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I think it's just they're at this level where they've got a bunch of similar roles and then similar level of players. Even like no one's a super standout on that team, but everyone's kind of felt like they're sort of okay. Config is a bit inconsistent still. That's just what you're going to get with him. So yeah, it's a weird one. I don't know. I really don't know what I'd do here. I'm excited to see what Threat does, because he'll probably have better ideas than I do. But damn, this is not an easy one.
He obviously knows all these players pretty well too, right? He was like, wasn't he? Oh, I'm not sure how long it's been now since he coached some of these players, but I mean, he wasn't there like not long ago, right?
I think Peter replaced him.
Like I can't remember the timeline now.
DGL replaced him, maybe. I think that would have been the order. So it would have been back when Forrest and maybe Dennis was.
I think
Threat
came back somewhat recently for a little bit, right? For like
2020.
Was he like? Did he come back as like an analyst for a bit too for the team, or?
Yeah, he was somewhere in the background.
Yeah. So he obviously has a insight to the team and how they work, and so you got to. I guess in this time you just got to trust him and see how it goes, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the route they were going to have to go down.
Yeah.
I think in terms of rumors, unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about the Falcons, it's big news, or anything else about NIP, I think we've covered most of the stuff that's happening right now in the scene, and there's been a lot that's going on.
Yeah, I do with the Falcons thing. I guess the teams I'm looking at that he might pick players from are like, Ents and like Heroic, these sorts of teams. I feel like you could probably easily pry some of those players away. Maybe even Mouse, maybe even Frozen from Mouse you could still consider it, even though they've just won an event. Also, FaZe, I think there's rumors that FaZe are in a tough spot, just like financially. So some of those players actually might be available. So those are the sorts of teams he could look towards.
I wonder if he would. I wonder if he would want to go the Danish route at all.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So like, say if he's picking up Magis and Dupree, and then he's able to hit, like, say Device, and then 2 other
And then Clave and
players
Zip.
from like Heroic or something
Yeah,
like that too.
Snappy
Like,
even. Who knows?
Zip
Yeah, it's
next.
doable. You could probably get heroic players
Yeah,
as
Zip,
well.
Yeah,
Zipnik, yeah, Glaive.
Yeah.
It's like we've seen this before.
It could be the
Players,
It could be
actually.
the last
You can play that,
dance.
like, boom.
Yeah.
Ah.
Is that where Fallen ends up next then?
Oh my god.
They've got the
He's
money
done the
to buy
last
him out.
dance. Now he's on the final flight.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting. The good thing if they do go Danish is there's just so much talent out there and so many options. And
yeah,
yeah, Snappy's a very good shout because he's been extremely impressive just at what he can do with pieces that probably shouldn't succeed as well as they do. So
for
yeah,
sure.
really gets the best out of his players. I mean, it could be another time where, you know, a team that Zonic's on, they grab another Israeli talent and go along, because that would be, again, another big move. But yeah, there's a lot of pieces that you can do if you're picking up Magisk and Dupree. Very decorated players, they know what they're doing and probably know how they can go into approach CS2 the best.
Yeah.
So yeah, exciting times, and I guess we'll have to wait till November now. So we're waiting for CS2 and now we're waiting for Falcons news. It never ends. The anticipation is there.
I think
but
you'd
yeah,
keep Boros.
keep Boros.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think if you're keeping players from that Falcons team, sorry to cut you off as you're leaving, but
no,
we're not
you're
done
good.
yet. I think we keep Boros and you keep Lornex. And those are the players I'd keep on that team.
Lornex, really?
Lowy.
Yeah.
I thought I mean, I haven't seen much of Falcons, but I thought he was pretty average when I've seen him.
I think you put him in the right environment and the right coach.
Yep.
I think he goes like that.
He's I played with him for a little bit in Sprout, and he has a very high ceiling. Like, his aim is ridiculous. But he definitely needs to work on, like, I'm assuming he has been probably in this Falcons lineup, is his discipline is the main thing for him, making sure he's working hard and stuff like that. But he's still so young too, and I remember coming into that team and then watching him for a little bit, and I was just blown. Like, his aim is just ridiculous. Like, he's got some of the best aim I've seen in CS. So he can definitely improve, but I think under the right coach like Zonic, he could definitely go a long way.
There you go. You got the accreditation there from Azza himself, who's played with him. So Brandon with another top pick. And Boris, particularly good at the major, wasn't he? So another player stand out.
Yeah, that team has been pretty lackluster though, hasn't it? Since they made it though.
Yeah.
Like,
They played
I mean,
games,
I haven't watched any of their games, but I've like seen a bit of their stats and stuff like that. And Boris looks like he's like, I don't want to say like dropped off, but it definitely doesn't look like it's working over there.
Have they played much?
Just a bit of online cups and stuff, right? Or I got no idea.
I just never see them, and I think that's maybe
they were at
problem.
Gamers 8, but that was single elim, and they just got bounced immediately by I think it was Heroic. It's pretty close.
That was close though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
the thing is,
played...
if you want to actually be the best team in the world, I don't know if you keep any of these players really. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
If you can get the big names, that is, and the tenured players, that's probably what I see happening.
Do you think there's a bit of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like him being, Zonic being Danish, the major being Danish, like that they want to have a Danish team there to win the major, like a full-on Danish team?
Just in case they're not well perceived, or possibly just to get the home crowd advantage.
I could see it. I mean, there's enough talent available, like we're saying. If they actually have this crazy budget, why not? I think it definitely could make a lot of sense.
No.
Yeah, you could just pick apart teams if they're not looking great as well at the minute. You know, likes a Heroic, you could maybe if you get Starn on that team as well. Like, there's a lot of big names.
I mean,
Lucky's
if you pick
Danish.
anyone, a lot of like, there's like a lot of just combinations you can make. Just if you can pick anyone. So good luck, Zonic, with whatever you do, mate.
Yeah, have fun. Honestly, honestly, the most fun job in CS right now.
I'll take you, and you.
Is just quickly, it just comes to my mind about this, because they are playing at Sydney. And if they know their coach is leaving, do you think that's good? I mean, I imagine Sonic's professional enough and the team are professional enough now that they'll be okay. But do you think that's going to have any impact on their performance? That they know the guy behind them who's giving them those those pauses and talking to them to kind of get them in control. He's going.
So in my past experience, when that stuff kind of happens, it's like usually one way or the other, like really bad or really good. And really good in terms of like if someone's leaving or something like that, then the pressure's gone, and then you just start playing really good. But in the other aspect, if people are overthinking things or like there's some sort of like angst towards someone leaving or something like that, then obviously it can go really bad. But I mean, I'm assuming they'll do pretty well, to be honest. Even if that's come up, they're professional enough to do it. So yeah.
Yeah.
I
The
guess
vibes on that team just seem so good in general. Like I can't imagine Apex actually being mad. It's so hard to imagine. You just look over at Apex, like actually, I can't be mad because he's so funny.
guess the thing we've not thought about as well is who replaces him. Like, that's such a challenge.
That's a tough
No
question.
idea,
yeah.
right? They recently had the is it MAT Matt? They had him stand in for Vitality at the which
Oh,
event did they win? I can't remember. Was it the Gamers 8 one? Was that what they won, or
Yeah, it might have
Yeah.
been.
I can't remember now, but they won that event, and I mean, Zonic wasn't there, so maybe they'll look towards him. I got no idea though.
It hasn't did phase coach is it Roban? Is he completely done? Is that what happened there?
It was like, didn't he tweet like when he left phase? Didn't he tweet he was gonna have more news soon or something like that too? But nothing ended up like coming out at all about why.
Just trying to think of coaches that match his level of experience, and because I don't think there's anyone that really tops Zonic,
Yeah.
but maybe he's the closest in terms of big name coaches.
Oh, apparently Roban did say after many years of coaching, I've decided it's time to move on to the next challenge. So
Yeah.
sounds like
Analyst
maybe
for
not him.
Falcons.
Okay.
They get even more talent than that. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of weird changes happening if that's the case, because you're taking one of the main pieces from
Yeah.
the best team.
You know what's wild is
Yeah.
we kind of had that roster shuffle previously in the off season, but I think this will feel like that actual roster shuffle now if this happens, because we're also going into CS2 and a lot of the teams that are underperforming will probably want upgrades. So yeah, big.
Yeah,
Honestly, I'm so surprised that there's like so many changes, because I feel like leading into CS2, you'd want to see who actually adapts
Yeah.
over coming to CS2 with like all the
Mm.
teams. But I mean, people are just going straight into it and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other interesting thing for Falcons, I guess. Do you wait a bit to see who's doing well in CS2, or do you try and sign a team very quickly? That's a tough call.
Yeah. I feel like they want to sign something pretty quick, just so
Yeah.
practice-wise and stuff, leaning towards to get as much practice as possible. So yeah.
because if he's not until November anyway, then yeah, did they assemble the pieces before that point, or have they got then the perfect solution, which is you get that coach and then you can look at the people actually playing the game.
I'm assuming like if he's signing November, I'm assuming they'll probably be making the team November, December, and then probably playing start next year. I'm assuming, but maybe it could even be earlier. But no
right
idea.
before the player break into
Yeah.
the RMRs.
Yeah.
But what happens as well if they have Magic and Dupree who won the major? Do they need to get another player who participated at the major to make the RMRs, or the whole situation's changed right now? It's just based on ranking. I should know this because I wrote an article on it at the last major, and it's completely gone out of my mind if cores actually are important anymore.
I don't know. You might be right.
No
I mean,
idea.
obviously the Valve ranking or whatever has come in.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly how that works. Yeah.
and I don't know
Isn't
how
the
long
Valve,
the points
like-
last for, because if they did, and you've got two of the previous major winners, surely those points add up to enough where you could probably get in a decent player. I mean, coaches don't take a part in that either, so yeah. It's going to be
I
interesting.
mean, I just remember the Valve ranking being awful when I looked at it.
It went
There
like
was
9
Yeah.
seeds top
Yeah, that's
or
what I was
something in
thinking
one
the
of
whole
them.
time.
Yeah. There was like 3 of the exact same team on there listed 3 separate times or something weird like that. And I was just like, what's going on? This needs some work.
I love that my
Yeah,
one
okay.
comment has derailed the entire podcast for an extra
Yeah,
20
it's
minutes
gone.
bonus.
It's gone. It's really exciting news is the thing.
It really is.
If it had come after the podcast, we would have been so annoyed that we hadn't been able to discuss it as well. So I'm glad it has happened because we would have talked
Yeah.
about it as a complete rumor, and now it's like so much buzz and excitement about who could he get, how's it going to go. So yeah, but Azza, are you going to be looking to play in CS2 as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously don't have a team right now, but still trying to put in the hours, even if it's just playing with mates and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely want to still keep playing CS. Still want to be involved in CS some way. So yeah, keeping
Great.
at it.
And another player that we love to see back in the scene, so it'd be great if that is the case coming into CS2, and once we've seen a bit more of what's happening with it. So
For sure.
yeah, we've all ended it here now. Unless Brandon's got another point to derail everything.
No.
No, he's good. But yeah, this has been Pinnacle Stack episode 5, I believe we're on now. And yeah, unless there's anything else you guys want to say to close it out, we will go.
No, I'm good.
So everyone's good. So yeah,
Go
thank you for joining us
Mouse.
again as a go Mouse. Yeah, thank you for joining us once again, Azza, on the channel, and yeah, make sure you
No
check out
worries.
these guys down below in the comments in the description. We'll have them linked, and yeah, you check us in the next episode. Thanks for watching.